I, I made a video a few minutes ago about Donald Trump, and I was inspired by Richard. Oh gosh, what's his name? It'll come back. Richard Murphy, and I was leafing through the Financial Times, and I realised that what Richard Murphy has talked about, Edward Luce talked about before the election of Trump. And Luce calls the same issue the banality of chaos, the slow, relentless corrosion of democratic norms under the erratic and egotistical shadow of Donald Trump. And Luce, with his characteristically precise prose, argues that Trump's threat is not some cloaked insurrection, but a grinding normalization of the outrageous, a kind of political entropy masked by entertainment. And Trump wasn't hiding his intentions before the election and isn't hiding them now. He's in the White House behind the resolute desk. He pledged to pardon the January the 6th rioters. He did so. He's pledged to wield the Insurrection Act to deploy troops against domestic protesters and quite possibly weaponize the Justice Department against political enemies. Will he do so? Well, Richard Murphy thinks he might. And I must say, the situation is building up to a point where there will be a standoff. The reaction of the rest of the country and the world is weary indifference. As Luce observes, we're drowning not in terror but in tedium. Trump's contempt for the rule of law is not speculative, it is demonstrable. Consider, for example, the Logan Act, enacted in 1799. This law prohibits private citizens from negotiating with foreign powers, and yet Trump, no longer a sitting president at that point, before he was re-elected, met with Viktor Orban at Mar-a-Lago and allegedly promised, and I'd forgotten this, he allegedly promised to block aid to Ukraine. Orban left the meeting declaring Trump a man of peace, while Vladimir Putin praised the message. This wasn't diplomacy, this was sabotage. And while prosecutions under the Logan Act are rare, the symbolism is potent. Here is a man who was poised to be president, became president, making unofficial foreign policy that flatly contradicted the elected government's, the Biden government's official position. This was not mere impudence, it borders on sedition. And then, once he became president, he enacted exactly what he promised. He blocked aid to Ukraine, he blocked shared intelligence to Ukraine. He seriously compromised Zelenskyy and Ukraine, and he shifted the balance of power between Russia and Ukraine. Absolutely. Demonstrable, defined, and predicted. And I hadn't noticed this, and I'm really grateful to Edward Luce for the article that he wrote. And I must say I'm shocked by this particular observation, and by what Trump then did with Vance in the Oval Office behind the resolute, or he wasn't behind the resolute desk at that point. He was mansplaining and spreading his legs in front of the camera. But Trump is also preparing to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807, a once obscure statute that permits the president to deploy military soldiers to deploy the military domestically in cases of rebellion or civil disorder. And the worry, as Richard Murphy has rightly noted, is that Trump doesn't fantasize about strongman powers. He's openly planning to enact them. Under Project 2025, which I haven't talked about very much, and I will, I promise, and the Heritage Foundation's blueprint, Trump would replace career civil servants with loyalists, consolidate power in the executive, command federal agencies as personal instruments of retribution, and in that context, the Insurrection Act, which he got Vance and Hegseth to check, is not a last resort but a first weapon. Trump's rise is not a political anomaly, it's epistemic failure, and he appears to have no grasp of Enlightenment philosophy or the intellectual architecture upon which the American Republic was built. He doesn't understand the difference between the the rule of the majority and the tyranny of the majority. Nor does he see the judiciary as a careful arbiter of liberty versus authority. Instead, he sees governance through transactional logic of business. Allies are useful until they're disloyal. Loyalty is more prized than merit. And fairness is a weakness. And the office of president, once the steward of the Enlightenment principles, is treated like a discount brand franchise. Democracy, in his worldview, is merely a slogan, a decorative flourish on a strongman regime. And Richard Luce rightly diagnoses our current malaise as a form of political hyperinflation, not of currency, but of scandal. Trump lies constantly, like Putin, or like Putin's doppelgangers. He mocks the disabled, he fits autocrats, he prizes his meetings with autocrats. He mimics Biden's stutter, he praises Hitler in private, apparently. He speaks in the syntactic equivalent of drunk karaoke, and yet the media shrugs. Biden misplaces a date in its front page news. Trump floats authoritarianism, and we sigh. Steve Bannon once called it flooding the zone with shit. And I'm afraid Steve Bannon is right, it works. The electorate's capacity to be shocked is eroded. What once would be career-ending now elicits what? Simply yawns. The risk isn't that Trump is too monstrous, it's that he's become so boringly monstrous that nobody cares any longer. So check out Pascal's wager. Blaise Pascal's famous wager asked what happens if we're wrong about the existence of God. Now, I'm not talking about God here. The consequences, he argued, matter more than the probability. Likewise, if we are wrong about Trump, the consequences matter more than the probability. If we underestimate his intentions or overestimate the system's resilience, when it's not resilient at all, the consequences are catastrophic. Trump would pardon insurrectionists. He's already done so. He would dismantle prosecutorial independence. He would subvert elections. He's tried to. And use federal power to punish dissent. These are not paranoid projections. These are his promises. The risk, as Pascal might say, is therefore infinite. He has the power to do all of this. The genius of the US Constitution lay, before Trump, in its balance. A president constrained by Congress, by courts, by custom. But those constraints rely on shared norms. They rely on the existence of shame, and Trump has none. The Electoral College, designed to prevent populist demagogues, has failed. Congress, paralyzed by partisanship, has failed. The courts have held till now. They are failing. As Robert Lieberman at the Johns Hopkins notes, the four warning signs of democratic collapse: polarization, racial resentment, inequality, and executive power concentration are all present now. Trump didn't create these conditions, but he can exploit them, and he does exploit them expertly. So what must we do now? We must write. There's no point in voting. All that's happened and that's gone. We must write. It's not about marching. Trump doesn't care about that. We must get things in print. We must use the internet. We must use YouTube. Trump is not a normal president. This is not a normal situation. People need to organize not so much a rebellion, but a debate. We need to have the debate. We need to discuss these things. We need to defend democracy in America and elsewhere in the world with the same vigor that Trump seeks to destroy it. Kamala Harris, who is not insignificant, she may have lost the election, but she is not insignificant. She said, our grandchildren will ask us what we did. And we cannot turn around and say, we did nothing, when we have so many available opportunities. We have the internet, this amazing machine to stimulate discussion and debate. And that's what we need to do. We need to debate. So when people say, oh, you hearted somebody's comment that was outrageous. It may well be outrageous. I heart somebody's comment because I want to encourage debate. And that means I have to listen to and I have to promote ideas which are absolutely abhorrent. Of course they are. In the hope that somebody is going to come along and say something positive. Not just simply, you've hearted a comment which is horrible. Yes, it is. So structure a response. Structure a response. If the world cannot start structuring a response, if we have to rely on one or two individuals to do it, then Trump will walk over us all, and so will Putin. The way to stop tyranny is to debate, to discuss, to have these talks.